This video is going to go through how to make the pool project happen. What you're now doing is figuring out how much material do you need and what's the cost going to be. We have not done geometry for a little bit, but what you have to keep in mind are the two main measurements. Volume, and again, volume is counting in cubes. Volume is a fill idea. How many cubes does it take to fill something? Air fills a room. Water fills a lake. Surface area is coverage idea. How many squares does it take to cover something? If you look down on the floor, squares. If you look up at the ceiling, rectangle tiles, but you could make squares from them. So you've seen this on my webpage. Again, I just want to go through so you understand how do you build a pool. Your backyard is there. How do you start? First of all, you got to dig a hole in the ground. It takes time and money to do that. So you have to ask yourself, is the excavation, the removal of dirt, is that a volume or surface area idea? Next, you're going to frame out the walls. Now, the walls we're going to use are going to be 1 foot thick. It's easier math, that's why we're using it. But again, are the walls, is that a cover or fill idea? There's a lot that goes into the pool. They framed it out. Now what they're doing is putting backfill, and they're putting all the dirt back in and the stones. They're spending time now working on putting a paved sidewalk around it. That's not going to be part of our project necessarily. But again, the dirt has been dug, the walls have been set. Now what you can see is they're going in and putting a layer of concrete down to make sure the dirt stays where it should be and make sure that the pool is formed the way it should be. So that's concrete going down, which would be the same as our floor and our walls. Again, you have to ask yourself, is concrete a volume or surface area idea? Next goes in the liner, the plastic cover that goes inside the pool. Does that count as a volume or surface area idea? Last part is, we dug the hole, we filled in the walls, we put in a liner, last part is the water. Is the water a volume or surface area idea? So I'm going to pause that here. And I want to take a look at the paper that you have. The top of your paper goes through requirements. What I want you to pay attention to, and this will be depending on your class, you have some constraints. Once you figure out how big the pool should be, you have some constraints. You have a time constraint, and again, depending on what period I have you for math, you have different requirements. You have a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money. So let's take a look. First of all, this is how big I want the water to be. Imagine if the pool water froze into a big rectangle. This is what I would want it to be. I want it to be 15 width. I want it to be 25 in length, and I want it to be 5 in height. It's a plain, simple, rectangular prism pool. This is the amount of water. This next part talks about the pricing options. Which company do you want to pick? For each phase, you are given a couple choices. We'll come back to that later. As you scroll down, you'll get to the next page. The next page is where your math is going to go. Your volume work, your surface area work. All right, I'll even help you get started. This is, actually, let's go down to the water. I want you to think about the water that you've got. On this page, this is where we'll do our formula work. Well, if you have not figured out, water is a volume idea. So I'm going to take length times width times height. Well, I got to fill in. Length was 25. Width was 15. And my battery died. Hold on while I change it. All right, I got my new battery, so we're ready to go. Volume, length times width times height. 25 is my length. 15 was my width. Height was 5. So let's do some calculating. Volume is 25 times 15 times 5, 1875. So the question is, next, what is my label? Is this a volume or surface area? It's volume. What do we count volume in? Volume is the number of cubes. So how many cubes of water do you want? 1,875 cubes. So I'm on page 2. I got 1/4 of my calculations done already just by watching this. Once you go through the other calculations, let's take a look. How do we fill this in? How do we now figure out cost? I want you to remember this number, 1875. On the last page, it now is my cost sheet. I have to figure out how much it's going to cost, how much time it's going to be. So I want to show you an example of how to fill this in. I'm going to have to kind of bounce between here and the first page just a little bit. I want to look at the water at the bottom. All right, water delivered. So I have two choices. I can either pick company A or company B, and I'm going to fill my information in. Let's flip back to page 1. And here's my cost sheet. Water delivered. I have two choices of companies. I have Fran or National Water. One is cheaper, one takes longer. Just for the heck of it, let's pick A. You can pick B, it does not matter. A is 8 cents for every cube, 36 hours. So let's flip back. How do I fill in my chart? First of all, which company did I pick? I chose A. Unit rate. How much do they charge for every cube? 8 cents. How much is it going to cost me? My calculation, well, it's 8 cents for every cube times, I needed 1,875 cubes, 1,875. So I'm going to multiply that. I need my calculator. 0.08 times 1,875 is 150. How much money is it going to cost me to use this company? 150 is my total cost. What's my total hours? 36. I'm going to repeat this process for the other pieces. The hole in the ground, how much concrete to use, how much liner to use. Figure out which company, fill in the unit rate, show my calculation, use the calculator, and get this and this. Now what's going to pull all this together is making sure you stay under your time budget and your money budget. Remember, total cost. You have a minimum, or a maximum I should say, of $8,000. Again, this depends what class you're in. Time, you have 8 hours a day, so that's 64 hours. So can I fill in this? Can I fill in these so that when I add them all up, I'm under 8,000 and I'm less than 64 hours?